Yeah, it is visible.
Yeah, thank you. So, so my topic of discussion or presentation is today is what are the some basic challenges that we have in designing a modern UI in LabVIEW. So I want to discuss because this topic itself is very huge, but I want to discuss a very small piece of this topic, like so how we can what are the some difficulties in designing aesthetics in LabVIEW application or in LabVIEW user interface, or how we can able to improve some, or how we can able to incorporate few techniques to make the UI in a better manner. So myself, Muruganandhan, so I'm a CLA and I'm a graphics professional instructor. So the outline of the topic is something like this. So I'm not going to discuss on in detail on this topic. So I'm going to just give you on a piece of information on this, and then I'll give you a small uh, information on how to improve the UI elements. So basically, first thing is why we want to go for the modern UI, or what we define as a modern UI. So if you look back on the last year, so most of the companies, in lot of the companies are rebranding themselves. So including our NI and even Google and all other major tech giants companies and automotive companies have rebranded themselves. So there could be a reason for the rebranding for a business perspective and a technical perspective, and a different kind of strategy in the organization itself. But as an user, what we can see, or as a user, as a basic user, what they are giving as in terms of rebranding. So maybe we can ignore the last two items. Maybe we cannot, unless we are afforded, then we could not able to see the benefits of rebranding or these two things. But yeah, so we are regular user for these first two elements. Either you can take it as an NI websites or NI products, or if you are taking Google or Google products. So comparatively, so if you are looking back in the last year or 2 years back or 5 years back, so how it was look like? Maybe if you are talking about in this terms, then we have to basically the interface for the user is directly to the website, or we can directly consider as an NI forums, or the Google products like the Gmail or Google Drive, or any other Google product. So how they have structured in last few years and how it's look like now. So they are changing and they are evolving, and they are attaining the new levels. So to give a better experience to the user. So okay, so I was talking about UI, but here we can come the user experience also comes in. So it is going to be the interlinked report. So when we talk, so when because we are regularly visiting to the NI website for searching something, NI forum for searching something. So there is improvements in user experience. So let's say in the first day in NI announcing that, or the Google is announcing that they are changing this logo, they are changing the color, they are changing the all other identities. Don't it may look, it may look for us it's going to be odd, or it may feel as odd, but over a period after 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month, so it is looks like, so it's feel refreshing. So we are seeing something new on the same product, same on a same platform. So it is kind of a user experience. So that is how we need to design or improve, or we need to incorporate new techniques in the UI whenever we are designing in the view applications, or whatever we are on the application that we are working on. So for example, okay, so if you are taking about UI and UX, I found a little unique doodle is the user thing. So this doodle is drawn by an user interface developer to just explain what is an UI and what is a user experience to his kid. So maybe a 4-year-old kid, for something. So he just drawn it. So it is very intuitive, like, so he is a user and the bicycle is the product, and then what is the user experience. So when we design those products, then when we're designing the user interface, we need to consider how the user going to use that product, or what are the elements are important to the user, or what are the elements that we are going to give the user for the better experience. Let's say for this cycle, this is bicycle, he is designing maybe with a custom seat height, then that will be suitable for the user that is having the user is having a different height or something. But if it is a fixed height, or if it is a fixed seat, then the user if the user is more than the fixed height, then they could not able to feel the user experience. Rather than they'll be feel struggling to drive this vehicle. So something like that. So we need to consider what is important to the user, and what we need to display, what we need to give better points to improve the user experience. The other thing is like something like this. So this is the car dashboard, and you are seeing the hazard button. So when in terms of user interface, okay, so we are thinking like, so does this hazard button should be the same color of dashboard, or it should be a different color, or what should be the color of that hazard icon? So that kind of aspects we are thinking as part of user interface. But in terms of user experience, so should it be placed in the dashboard, in the middle of the dashboard itself, or it can be placed any better places? Or how frequently the user going to access this hazard button? So why we need to definitely place it in the middle of the dashboard itself? So these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves to get to understand, or to find the user experience, or to fine tune the user experience. Okay, so these are few things that comes around. So when we think about the user interface or user experience. So the other example is like, so is a few years ago, how the Google homepages look like. So it is having a lot of information and a lot of controls, and it's a Google logo. So these are all clumsy. Even on the time, it maybe look modern in 10 years ago, but if you look now, it just looks clumsy. In the same way, if you're on the right side, if you look at current Google interface, Google search interface is pretty good. It's fantastic. So it is not having anything other than just a Google search bar and two buttons, and if you are preferred to change language, that's it. So this is what the user want. Otherwise, all other things are customizable that can be given in some other place. So this kind of aesthetics that we want to give to the user customers. So typically, so when we come to talk about the LabVIEW user interfaces, so we are having an enormous kind of and variety of controls and indicators palettes in LabVIEW itself. So if you take it as a classic, and if you take it as silver, if you take it as system controls, all these types of controls are available. So all are not released in the same year or same time. These are all evolving from one another. So let's say if you are taking in the classic control, yeah, one certain time, then we want to give an interface that imitates the real instrument, and how the real instrument switches look like, and how the real instrument knob is look like, and how and the same experience we want to give to the user. So in that case, the classic controls are very nice option. Then we cannot use any other things that rather than this. If you want to design an uh, real instrument interface, or if you want to provide real instrument experience to the user in some time back. But even now, if you look like the instruments, real instruments also have changed their panels. So they are changing the colors, they are changing the icons. So even we have a touch panels in the real instruments right now. So that's how we are the other controls are coming into the place. Let's say the silver controls. So it is in one time it is going to be the best, and the other thing the system controls also is it is completely depends upon how we are going to design the user interface for our user, right? But yeah, these are all already we are fixing mind that. So these are all LabVIEW UIs, right? So these are all LabVIEW UIs. So, by looking at itself, then we can able to say that okay, so this application is designed in LabVIEW. But in recent years, we are hearing that people are saying that okay, we could use the LabVIEW to develop the applications very quickly, but it should not look like it is developed in LabVIEW. They want a better aesthetics, or they want a better user interface. So they don't want to show, or don't want to display that it's developed in LabVIEW itself. So that kind of interface that we want to evolve, that we want to give, that is expected to give from our side. So that is how the other elements are coming. So these are the modern user interfaces. These are also developed in use LabVIEW, but in a custom designed toolkits or custom designed controls. So by looking at it, we cannot definitely say that, okay, so this is not LabVIEW UI, unless otherwise they are familiar with the tool. So, but it looks stunning, very good. So, but if you are designing something like this, and if you are giving a product something with this kind of UI, then we cannot say the people cannot identify, or they won't feel that it is designed in the LabVIEW. So these kind of interfaces that we can incorporate in our regular application development environment. It is different, but yeah, over a period, if you are delivering it continuously with the same kind of controls and same kind of interface, then yeah, user also habituated to and they identify, okay, so this is done by LabVIEW. So we need to improve it consistently to give a better user interface and better user experience. So we need to think of like, so we need to design and user experience rather than user interface. So that is an more important statement that I have learned in last few years. So that is a key point for my this presentation. So yeah. So the challenges is like, okay, so there are a lot of user interfaces are available. Then how we can able to start UI, or how we can think of user interface, or how we can able to design modern applications, and what are the things that we need to think of when we think of an user interface, and how to customize those controls. And yeah, so do we have any started elements? So these points alone I am going to discuss on for in the next few slides. So when we think about the user experience, so there is a nice article that I have read when I am thinking of a better user experience, what we need to improve. So there is a Peter Morville user experience honeycomb. So this article, yeah, I have given in the, I'll be giving you the link of this one. Maybe already you might be aware of it. So this is a very, very nice article when we think about the user experience. So each and every element of this honeycomb is definitely a key point for giving designing the user interface and user experience, because it's all stick together. So when we think about, let's say, for example, in the hazard itself, so when we think about that user interface, then it should be definitely useful for the user, and it should be valuable. So each and every element, if you take each and every element of this, then definitely you will feel like, so these are all very important point when we start developing the professional user interface for our applications. Every elements. So let's say, for example, in the hazard, or if let's say in the same dashboard itself, the hazard could be placed in a different place because it is not used frequently. But when we want to give a switch or control that is accessible by the customer very frequently, or in a emergency situation, yeah, that should be accessible in a very quick manner. It should be front of the customer. So that kind of an interface that we can give instead of the hazard in the dashboard, car dashboard. So that is one kind of way of thinking, like, so something like this. So we need to think of this each of every element that we need to when we are discussing and when we are defining the user user interface. Let's say if if you look at these three terms, so how to use and think how customer will use, and think customer how will feel when we use it. So that is the three major things that it brings out all these 7 important points. So that is a very important article that we have that I will share you at the end of this one. So where we look for the trend, or where we look for the modern UI interface. Just we my point of view is like, so we need to look for the websites, the how the websites are designed. So these websites are the trendsetters in the UIs. So we need to get inspiration from those websites. So how better we can improve our user interface, right? So because they are all working on the different technologies, where we can get the idea of how we can able to improve it, because the static or the defined controls or indicators or whatever we have in the one, it will be it can be useful for certain extent, and then after that we need to redesign it everything. Then if you are looking for the redesigning, then we have to look for some additional input. So in that case we need to look for these websites. So this will give a nice user interface ideas, so that we can capture it from them, the websites. And then the few additional points, like, so we need to design the UI, I mean the layouts. So how the layout is going to be. So if you think of layout, then that should be very simple. Then that should be easily accessible by the customer, the user. So these are the important questions that we can ask ourselves before we are thinking or before we are designing the layout. The first thing is like, so how the user want to interact with you. So whether he want to navigate and then to the other menus and he want to access it, or he want to access it in a block by block, or he want to load the front panel one by one, or he want to have sub panels. So how the user want to access those UIs. So that we need to take care of considerably. Typically, we will be displaying all the control indicators in a single front panel or single UI. So that is going to be, for if you have a very less number of controls, then that's going to be good. And if you have a more number of controls, then that is going to lead a confusion. Then we will lose the experience of user. So that is what the point that we need to consider. And yeah, what are the important information that we are going to display for the user? Let's say, for example, if you are okay, so the user is moving the cursor to the button, then whether you want to stay the button as it is, or you want to highlight the cursor is moving along and he can able to select it, or we can give a hover effect, right? So these kind of simple things that can greatly enhance the user experience. And so what is the sequence of actions? Okay, so in what action the user, and what sequence the user is going to access and the controls. Let's say in what order we need to place, or what order we need to load the different points. So these are simple points that can help us to design a correct layout for this. And then, yeah, the flat and semi-flat controls. So if you think of the modern user interfaces, even in the websites or in other points, or even in LabVIEW itself, we have a flat control. Even we have a flat control toolkits from different companies, and it's also available for us to use. But yeah, so when we think of the flat control, so it is kind of in our ears, it is overusable. We can easily overuse the flat control. So if you put everything in a flat control, and there will be like, so we can there will be a confusion, like, so whether that control is clickable or it is not clickable, or it is we need to type some input, or we don't need to type, or we are selecting it or not selecting it. So this kind of confusions will come to the user. So if you are overusing all the flat controls, so in that case we can use some semi-flat controls with some improved aesthetics. So it is also a flat control, but it is something like elevated things. So we can include some hover effect, or we can include some highlight, or if you are including, we can change the color. So something like this. So we can include some small things that can improve the user experience. So right. So these points that we can keep in mind, that when we are designing the user interface. So in the flat control set, so we have a JKI flat controls, we have a DMC flat controls, so we have a Rafa solution flat control. There are a lot of toolkits are available. So yeah, some are free and some of are cost, or some of giving a free trial users. So we can make use of it, and then we can look for, we can think about how we can design our own things for our applications in the future. The next thing is, so how we can design. So it is very simple. So the better to start with the silver control or the system controls to customize these things. So yeah, it is also a better thing to start if you are planning to work with designing customizing the control. It is start with the blank buttons. So it will give you more options, and we can try it out, and then you will feel very good, and then you can design your own user interfaces in for the different controls as well. So it is just to give an confidence that we can able to customize our controls for depends upon our application, or we can also design our set of controls for the organization, for the inside the organization. And yeah, okay, yeah, this is also an important point, that is, so we can include some animation, because animation is playing an important role in the modern days user interface. So if you're taking any website, so it's a kind of an animation. So when you click on button, yeah, it is animating. When you moving the button, when you moving the cursor to the cursor on the button, then it is animating. So this kind of animation, then we can try it out in the LabVIEW, because LabVIEW controls does not have a default animation capabilities, but we can try it out with some external codes, or we can try it out some, we can add some functionalities into that. So yeah, I can show you some an example on this, maybe a small demo. Okay. So if you see this, maybe I'll minimize it. So if it's so I have got this VI from our community website itself, and then I have customized it. So how we can able to show the animation? I'll just improve it. So if you see that there is no other menu items and nothing else. So we have only the stop button and only this one. So if I'm moving my mouse into this, yeah, so that is a sliding animation, right? So here I have a menu items. So here I can hide my, I can have a number of items that I can use it for other configurations and for the navigation purpose. So if I move out of this panel, then it will be slide out. So this will help us to save some space in the UI, interface, and then it will give a nice animation to the user. So it will give some better experience. So if I'm going at this, yeah, it is. So it is not a fancy animation or something, but it is a very simple thing and simple logic that we have used here. If you see the logic, then it is completely nothing else. So it is very simple. So we have used some the event structure to handle or to play this animation completely, and we are using the position of position information of the two different tab controls. So based on that, we are using some calculation to slide in up or moving into the current active window, and then we are moving out to the active window. So that is the only option that we are doing. But this simple action can help us to improve some or give some better experience to the typical users. And yeah, and some easy ways to improve the experience is like, so LabVIEW gray. So typically, so we are having all the things in the gray. So yeah, we can change this. So if you change, if you look into the nice color palettes, there are something Adobe colors or coolers. So there are a lot of coloring or color panel websites that are out there. You can get a nice colors with the nice shades. Then we can use the same thing in the LabVIEW itself. So for the icon design, for the customizable icon on the user interface itself. So instead of stop button, we can try the panel close event. So that is also, it's a simple thing, but it will enhance the user experience. And some bigger fonts. You need to come out of the smaller fonts, and then we should try some bigger fonts. Splitter bars, yes, definitely it is going to be the game changer. So if you are using the splitter bars, then that is going to give us an ability to have a researchable UI in the LabVIEW itself. So and yeah, it's a DMC suite. It is free to use, and then yeah, you can download it, and then you can use it. And I'll be providing the link as well. And then system controls. So don't forget the system controls are very good. Even the system controls 2.0 is also available. You can use that. The only controls that I have seen with the hover effect. all other control panels in the control, so all other controls, the classic controls, silver controls don't have the hover effect, but you can see the hover effect in the system controls. So that we can also make use of it. Okay, so yeah, that's all I have. Yeah, if you have any queries, I'll be happy to help you out.